Whoa, buddy, put that thing back in its holster. We haven't gone anywhere.
I don't understand.
Check out the MichaelDukesShow.com for information on how to get access to the podcast.
Welcome to the party, pal.
The Michael Dukes Show.
The greed and the entitlement is astounding to me.
What more could you want from a low-budget radio program?
This is a dumpster fire.
That was just BS.
It is time to get a new perspective.
We know just what you need, and we've got just the cure. Open wide and prepare for a steaming hot cup of freedom.
I just don't fathom it.
The Michael Dukes Show, streaming live across the world.
Live around the world on the internet at Michael Dukes Show. I'm across the state of Alaska on this, your favorite radio station and or FM translator. Hello and good morning, my friends. It is another beautiful day in this neighborhood here on this Wednesday edition of the program. And I'm super excited and hoping that the remaining days of summer are similar to this, nice and beautiful out, blue skies, and ready to go. Are you ready to jump into this with both feet and get things going and get started here today? We've got some headlines to discuss. Now, there's not a lot of stuff happening politically right now. It's been pretty quiet on the campaign trail. And part of that, I think, has to do in part with the fact that the majority of the races in the state, since we're still under the ranked choice voting scheme, we're not having, essentially the primaries almost mean nothing. And so while there's going to be a couple races that are affected by this, the majority of them are not. And so there doesn't seem to be this urgency to get in front of the voters or to talk about a lot of these things earlier on. And we're going to talk about that here in just a bit. We'll also talk about the latest report from the DOJ on Alaska's disabled voters and how Alaska apparently is falling short of the mark on that. We'll talk about Juneteenth, and we'll talk about this big dispute with the feds over education funding and the equity of it. We kind of talked a little bit about this before, but it's coming to a head, and we'll talk about that as well. On top of that, we're going to take some of your phone calls. And we'll see what you guys have to say this morning. It's been a little while since we've taken the time and had a chance to chat with you about that. And so we're going to open up the phone lines right now. In fact, 319-527-3864. 319-527-3864. If you would like to sound off, we'd love to have you be part of it with us here this morning. Give us a shout. And we'll talk about any topic in hour one, any topic that you want to chat about. I'm ready. I just want to hang out this morning, get our day started, talk about a few things that are important, and see what you have to say. So feel free to jump on board and help direct the conversation. We'll also be talking with folks this morning, obviously, in the chat room. The chat room is available either on Facebook or YouTube or Twitch, any one of those, although it seems like the majority of folks are hanging out with us on Facebook this morning. I can see them all. So if you have a thought topic or a question or anything else, feel free. Feel free to dive in and let's get going on, shall we? Let's do that in hour one. And then in hour two, I usually confirm with Mike Shower the day before because, sometimes, he's a pilot. Sometimes he gets called away. And I failed to do so yesterday. So fingers crossed that Mike Shower will be joining us this morning, as he said he would be. And so we'll see what happens there. All right. So that is that. So Mike Shower in hour 2 this morning. It's all good. Okay. We are ready to crack along. I see Willie. Willie just said something in the chat room about ranked choice voting. And Willie, you're welcome to call in and talk about your thoughts on that if you'd like. I'm happy to hear what you have to say this morning. All right, let's get to it. I do have some good news too. Just a couple stories. Nothing too much, but in case I want to run out here, we're going to do it. Juneteenth is scheduled to become a paid holiday next year. Now, unless you think that I know some people are like, Juneteenth, what's that? It is the day that celebrates the emancipation and freedom of slaves. The original Juneteenth goes back to June the 19th of 1865, when Union troops arrived in Galveston Bay, Texas, and freed more than 250,000 enslaved Black people. So, I mean, it's a celebration of freedom. I think it is an important part to remember for America, especially as it was one of the turning points of the at the end of the Civil War, and did correct the slavery issue in that area. So I'm in support of it. Now, whether or not it should be a paid holiday for everyone in the world, I guess is another question. There was a bill that was passed this year in the state legislature, and it would become a state paid holiday here if the governor either signs it or allows it to become law. The bill was sponsored by Senator L.B. Gray Jackson from Anchorage, and was adopted by the Senate in a 16-4 vote last year, and then passed the House this last month in a 37-3 vote. So, vast majority of legislators support it. The 7 votes that came from the no side were all Republicans. And the governor has yet to sign it or comment on whether he intends to allow it to become law. So unless otherwise specified, bills go into effect 90 days after the governor signs them, meaning that even if the governor were to sign the bill early this week, the state employees would still not receive today's paid holiday. So there are many places that are closed and off today for Juneteenth, but they are it became an official federal holiday back in 2019, I think. 2021. It became a federal holiday. And now there's a whole bunch of states who've made it a state holiday. Again, I don't mind it being a recognized holiday. I think it's a great day to remember and celebrate. But the question is, how many paid holidays are we going to have on the calendar? Should it be a paid holiday for everyone that works specifically for government, or businesses should be able to decide whether or not they want to have paid holidays for their stuff? I mean, I guess that's just the question, especially since we've got 4th of July coming up and everything else. The cost of the Juneteenth state, making it a state holiday, is expected to cost upwards of just under $1 million a year. $1 million a year, mostly in overtime and holiday pay for essential service providers. More than half of that would come from the Department of Corrections, because, it's not like they can take a holiday and just leave. Of that $950,000 per year, $534 of it would come from the Department of Corrections, where they would have to, where you would have to do it. But it is Juneteenth. Again, a celebration of the emancipation of a lot of slaves in 1865. So congratulations and happy Juneteenth for folks out there. And then again, the question, that I know a lot of people are raising is how many holidays do we get in the long run? I mean, how many, if somebody's a state or a federal employee out there who's listening this morning, can you tell me how many paid holidays do you get in as an employee? Because I know that there's the standard, Christmas, Thanksgiving, 4th of July, Labor Day, Memorial Day. But I know there's also Seward's Day. Is it Seward's Day or it's Alaska's Day, President's Day, Juneteenth now for federal employees, MLK. I know there's another one in there that I was thinking of that I was surprised that they got off, and I can't remember what it is right now. How many paid days are there? I'm just curious. I'm just curious. Feel free to sound off and tell me about that. But it looks like next year this will become a paid holiday, and unless we'll see. We'll see if the governor signs it and where it goes from there. But more than likely, based on the overwhelming support from the legislature, again, 53 of 60 signed on and voted for this bill. I just don't think the governor will probably. I don't think he'll veto it, but maybe, stranger things have happened. I guess we'll see where it goes from there. All right. I want to talk a little bit here about what's coming up. We're going to talk in just a second here about the Department of Justice. They have done a report on the voting records and on the what they say is discrimination by the Alaska Division of Elections against Americans with disability. Specifically, in many of the cases that we're talking about here, people who have sight issues. That's brought up again and again and again. But wait, I thought that Nancy Dahlstrom was she was a fighter and she was doing good work in this. I mean, I thought this was, although that's not really fair on my part because some of these issues go back to 2015 originally. And so that's not necessarily her, but I mean, I just thought, hey, she's a fighter, right? She just got the whole nod and the endorsement and everything else. But we're going to talk about exactly what they found and exactly what is going on with that and what does it mean. And I'll be honest with you, I'm not a huge fan of federal overreach and interference with some of these things. But if what they are saying is true in the investigation and in their findings, yeah, we got to do a little bit better. Because just because somebody has a disability, a movement impairment, or is blind or whatever, doesn't mean that they don't have the right to vote and that they shouldn't be able to vote. And there's supposed to be concessions made to help them do those things. And there's a little bit of a kind of a horror story here on some of these things. So we'll talk about this as well. We'll continue here in just a moment. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. We're also going to talk a little. Oh, there was a little blurb about Bill Thomas. We talked about him dropping out of the race. We got a little bit more details as to why that happened. We'll continue. Plus, again, the phone lines are open. If I'm taking it this morning in the wrong direction and you're like, no, we need to talk about this, well, feel free to call us up and chat. 319-527-3864. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio. Back with more right after this.
If you missed the show, you can listen to it on your time with Dukes On Demand. Oh, and it's free. Like America used to be. Streaming live every weekday morning on Facebook Live and MichaelDukesShow.com.
Okay. Hello, my friends. Hello. How you doing this morning? Let me just do this here. I gotta drop something down. One of my things didn't pop off the way that it was supposed to. What's going on? Why did it do that? Anyway, good morning and welcome to the program. I hope you guys are ready to sound off and help me out this morning. It's been a really slow news cycle. I mean, there's just not a lot of stuff happening. I don't know exactly why. Although I do suspect a little bit that the new ranked choice voting thing is definitely part of the issue. Let's just put it that way. Definitely part of the issue going on out there. Let's see. Every day is a holiday when you work for the state. What's a paid holiday? Brian says it's a paid holiday in our shop. So Veterans Day, okay. Veterans Day, Memorial Day. Somebody just said, where did I just see that? Somebody said it's 10. It's 10. Where did I just see that? Bill says it makes either 14 or 15 paid holidays. Scott Berg says he thinks it's 10 for the feds. Jalen says it's 13 days for state workers. So that's, I think what Bill was saying was that the new Juneteenth one would make it either 14 or 15 paid holidays. Alaska's Day, Seward's Day are the extra ones for Alaska. Veterans Day, Memorial Day, Labor Day. I mean, it's interesting because they take off. There are just times when I'm just like, I go to the bank or whatever, and I'm like, whoa, it's closed. Apparently, we're the only in the wrong business to be able to take off that paid holiday. We're in the wrong business. Oh, man. All right. Looks like I don't know, it might be Willie. Let me see who's on the line here. Up on the phone calls this morning. Let me switch this around right there. There we go. All right, let's check in real quick here. We got about 2 minutes before we return to the radio. Let's check in to see who's on the line, and we'll get some folks up here and get started. Good morning. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Yes, good morning. This is Willie Keppel in Quinn Hall.
Hey, Willie. All right, hold the line. I'm going to put you back on hold, and we'll touch base with you here as soon as we get back on the radio. Let's go over here to this other call. See who this is. Good morning. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
It's Layla from Fairbanks.
Hey, Layla. I'll tell you what. I'm going to put you ahead of Willie because I know Willie's going to have a lot to say. So you'll be number one in the queue, and you can talk real quick, and then we'll bring Willie on. All right. So
Okay.
we'll get your comment first in this case. So Willie, just hang out. I know you're going to have a lot to say. So I'm going to bring Layla on first, and then we'll be back. All right. So don't lose hope. We'll get to you here in just a sec. All right. Good morning. Biggest news of the day: Justin Timberlake DUI. Yeah, I saw that. Justin Timberlake gets busted for DUI. I mean, you think a guy who's a gazillionaire like Justin Timberlake could afford to have a driver, you know? I'm going to go get liquored up, and then I'm going to drive myself. You would think that they would, you know, you would think that would be, you know, I don't know. Office of OPM.gov lists for Fed holidays, says Jeffrey. Okay. Office. I'll have to go take a look. I mean, I'm not that I just was curious, more than anything else. If somebody actually worked out there, how many paid holidays are there? A significant amount, I imagine. All right, here we go. We're jumping back into it. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, yada, yada.
Public enema number one. Oh, wait, sorry. Enemy. Public enemy number one, which makes more sense. On the other hand, he's a little bit of a pain in the Michael Duke Show.
Yeah. Okay, let's continue on. We got some phone calls. We're going to start off with Layla up in Fairbanks. She had some thoughts this morning. Before we jump over to our friend Willie out at Quinnipiac, let's start off with Layla at Fairbanks and get her thoughts on what we've been talking about this morning. Good morning, Layla. What's on your mind?
Hey, I looked it up, and there are 11 state holidays
11
for workers.
11 state holidays, okay.
And so it's,
11 state holidays for workers in the state of Alaska, not federal workers, but state workers.
Right. Well, some of them are federal holidays. 2 of them are state holidays.
Okay, so we got Alaska Day and Seward's Day as the 2 Alaska holidays plus the federal holidays.
It's
right.
New Year's Day, MLK Day, President's Day, Seward's Day, Memorial Day, Independence Day, Labor Day, Alaska Day, Veterans Day, Thanksgiving, and Christmas.
Okay. All right. Well, that's okay. So that's about what we expected, and then so Juneteenth would make it an even dozen then for the state. It is.
I mean, there's a huge gap from March to Memorial Day between Seward's and Memorial Day, and so there have been a lot of state workers who think that there ought to be a holiday in there somewhere, but then they came up with Juneteenth, which my way of thinking is, okay, when my kids were little, when my daughter was little, MLK Day was not a holiday, and they went to school and they learned stuff about the civil rights movement.
Right.
Then it became a holiday, and my son never learned anything about the civil rights movement unless he learned it from me, which makes no sense. So,
right.
Because what I know is limited. And so it was like, they created a holiday, and they actually created ignorance there. So I'm not sure that having the day off for a lot of these things makes sense.
Well, you would hope that
it's something to celebrate. I'm not sure it's something to celebrate by getting to sleep in.
Yeah, no. I mean, it is something to celebrate 100%. I don't know, again, if it's worthy of the paid holiday status, but I would hope that they would teach kids about the greatness of Martin Luther King. I would hope that they would teach them about it more than just on the day that they take off for. I mean, I think you're speaking to something a little bit deeper than, hey, we just took Martin Luther King Day because we did. I mean, you would hope that they would talk about it a lot more than just on the day.
They got a lot more in depth when they did it on MLK Day because it was his day. Whereas my son, he said it was a 5-minute thing in history class, basically. And you moved on and you did it on another day other than MLK Day. Whereas my daughter said, it was like all day long they would do MLK themed stuff.
Right.
And so for her, it made a real impression. With him, it did not. And my alarm is going off, so I'm going to let you go. Bye.
All right. Thanks, Layla. Appreciate the call. All right. 319-527-3864. Willie Keppel out in Quinnipiac joins us this morning. Good morning, Willie. Willie is. Are you with us, Willie? Do you hear me now?
Oh.
What's going on? What's going on, my friend? What's on your mind?
Well, funny you should ask. There's lots of things on my mind going on out here. And probably the first one is what's the governor going to do on the 28th with the budget? Are we going to see the governor stand up and fight for us? For 6 years now, the governor has put a full PFD into the budget. and every year it goes away. Now, the governor had a budget written out that was pretty flat line. We could afford it, apparently, better than what we can afford right now, for sure. But he never seems to back it up, with the exception of the first year, and then he got beat up, and they were going to try to kick him out of office, and all of a sudden we lost our governor. And so now I kind of look at him as doing nothing but counting votes and pandering to the public with the full PFD when he throws it out here every year in part
Right.
of his budget. So what I'm asking, and what I'm going to start hammering on Facebook about, is, Governor, let's see you back up your budget. You didn't have any leadership that I could see, that anybody else could see, happen this last year. Things just went as the Senate Finance decided they were going to go. We got our 25% PFD, and here we sit. Now, what I want to see is, I want to see the governor go out here and slash that budget by the exact same amount as what Senate Finance stole from the people from their full PFDs. And apparently he had a plan to pay a full PFD and to keep the state rocking and rolling. Then let's see it happen, Governor. So that's on my mind this morning. The other one is ranked choice voting.
Before we jump into the
Willie,
before we jump into the ranked choice voting thing, let me just ask you a question. I mean, why would it be? First of all, you're right. He puts the full PFD in there, almost as just kind of posturing to say, "Look, I did it." What's in it for him to cut the budget back? I mean, where's the impetus? I mean, he's a lame duck. He's a lame duck governor. He has shown that, ever since that first year where he got his, he got whacked on the hand for trying to bring the state government in line. Ever since then, he basically has been acting like a whipped dog over anything that goes on there. He rarely vetoes anything. He did veto 140. He did veto the BSA increase, or half of the over the top increase from last year. But for the most part, he just kind of lets the budget go. Where's his incentive to veto these things? I mean, what is it? I guess what I'm saying is, what does it do for him? It's not an election year for him. He's a lame duck governor. Maybe he's thinking about putting a run for Senate together. Maybe not. Where's the incentive for him to do that politically? I mean, he maybe in his heart of hearts he wants to do it, but I would have thought that the day that he became governor in his second term as a lame duck, if he was going to tighten up and harden up and be the budget hawk, I would have thought he would have started right there. What impetus does he have to do it now?
Well, I kind of believe that when you take that oath for governor, you assume a fiduciary duty to the people. And where we're headed right now is a straight beeline to either sales taxes, which by the legislative finance's own numbers won't even come close to filling the gap that's stolen by from the PFD. And so that means that, yep, they'll put a stopgap in with the sales tax, and then they're going to have to move on to an income tax after that. But they're not going to income tax until they make sure that they can hurt the poorest people first. That's it. That's what should be driving him right now. He should be looking at the future. For Pete's sake, he has 5 girls. How many grandkids is he going to end up with in this lifetime? How many grandkids are those daughters going to have? This is where he stands up and takes control of the budget and Alaska's future. We're getting hammered everywhere. If he wants to make a name for himself, now's the time to do it. Like
Right.
you say, he's lame duck. He's got 2 years. He can either run if he chooses against Lisa or not. It doesn't matter.
Right.
He needs to stand and do the job he said he was going to do. Otherwise, as far as I'm concerned, after 6 years of full budget or a full PFD in the budget and doing absolutely nothing to back his words, doing nothing to stop the onrush of taxes that we all know is coming at us, then just go away, go bury your head in the sand in shame.
Okay, all right.
Otherwise, stand up and go fight. What do you got to lose?
Right. Well, and that's kind of what
If you're standing,
that was my point, is that
you know,
he had the opportunity, but he really hasn't grabbed that bull by the horns. All right. Well, let's move over to the ranked choice voting. I've only got about 5 minutes here. Ranked choice voting. You said you had a comment on this, and I think this has to do with the race out in the Bethel area. What are your thoughts on what's coming up right now on the ranked choice voting issue?
well, first off, I'm running again because we couldn't find anybody else out here that wants to run, and I'm vehemently opposed to letting a legislator run without having somebody as another option for the voters. And out here, if you're not a Democrat, you're pretty well screwed, to say the least. Nobody expects a conservative to win, so I don't look at it. It's not a stigma to lose a race out here, for Pete's sake, especially when I don't even throw money at it. But I do a radio show every Friday out here, and it was enough that it carried Bethel last 2 years ago when I ran against Lyman Hoffman. He was unopposed for 20 years. 20 years, nobody had run against him. But I beat Lyman Hoffman in Bethel at the polls from the people that actually showed up at the polls and voted there. And that really upset Lyman, to be beat in his own hometown. So there's always an off chance that can happen. But what the Democrats have learned out of this is they got C.J. McCormick, a 25-year-old radical woke left-wing kid that's sitting down there in Juneau. And where he's at right now is, how do we make sure that we can get enough votes to beat CJ? I mean, that CJ can win. So what they've done is they picked up two native gals, young gals, zero experience in about anything I can tell. One of them I've never even heard of, and I've been out here almost 40 years. And anyway, the deal is, even Suzanne Summers pointed out in one of her articles, hey, they have Yupik middle names, 5 of them on the state ballot this year with native names, middle native names, in italics. And what that does is, when it goes to all these villages that never hear radio, they don't hear much of anything for news, they just see the Yupik portion, and boom, that's an instant vote draw right there. So they've stacked 2 gals. One of them was McCormick's former girlfriend, and she got mad at him apparently, and had enough of his radicalism. She's Catholic, and thinking, but she hasn't confirmed it yet, but it's pretty much common consensus thought out here that we don't want guys in our girls' bathrooms or any of this transgenderism taking over our schools. And so I'll give her points there, but she's never had anything, but she'll get a lot of votes.
Right,
just
right.
because she's native and she has that Yupik name in there. So that's kind of where they've got 3 Democrats lined up just to take little old me on, and I giggle because I don't even throw money in these races. I just go, hey, I'm giving you an option. If you want to vote, go ahead and vote. You know where I stand. Everybody knows where I stand out here. So we'll see how it goes.
Well, so that means that there's 4 of you in the race. So really, even then, the primary, and this goes back to something I was going to talk about in the next segment, is essentially, with the exception of, I think, 2 races in the state of the 40 districts, every race, the primary really doesn't matter. It's more of an opinion poll than it is anything else. It's a bellwether of what's going to come in the general, because of ranked choice, there is no primary essentially for the vast majority of the races. You'll end up all the way out. If there's only 4 of you, you'll end up on the main card at the general election as well, right?
Yes, exactly. All 4 of us move on, And what I'll do is I'll look at the voter results from each village. And unlike everywhere else in Alaska, pretty much everywhere else in Alaska, rural Alaska, there's no roads out here. We don't have a single road, you know. Senator Kawasaki can take his long trail and shove it. How about come out here and put some roads in between villages out here so we can cut the cost of transportation? 57 villages and no interconnection unless you're driving on the ice, frozen ice on the Kuskokwim River in the winter.
Right.
That's our trail system. So you can't campaign, but what I can do out of this whole ordeal is I can look at the villages. I can see which villages I'm doing pretty good in, and I normally do in most villages. It's fairly well a split until on the primary. It's usually a split pretty close to 50-50. And what always brings it over now, since they've started really going into this chasing the ballot, which I think should be illegal as it gets, that's where they pull that extra 1/3 vote in. I'll end up with 1/3 of the vote. Every conservative that runs out here pulls 33-36%.
Right.
That's just history. You can count on it. You can bet money on it right now today.
Right.
And that's what's going to happen. But
well, it'll be
there ends where we go.
Yeah, it'll be an interesting thing to watch. I'll be watching that with anticipation to see what. No, hell hath no fury like a woman scorned. If his ex-girlfriend's running, that should be interesting races for sure, man. That'll be crazy. All right, Willie, hold the line for a second. Folks, we're out of time. We got to go. The Michael Duke Show, Common Sense Radio.
What is that?
Common Sense.
Regularly heard on American radio.
Michael Duke Show. Radio.
Okay, one final bite at the apple here, Willie. Any final thoughts before we let you go?
Sure, the woman scorn part. Yeah, the deal is they're going to use that woman, and she may be 100% against everything CJ stands for. I don't know, and I'm just going, if that's what it was. They're still going to use her because her votes are going to get passed on over. She stands zero chance of winning, and her votes are just going to tally up for her ex-boyfriend. And so if she really wanted to hurt him, she'd drop out, but that's not going to happen. What's going to happen is, just like Tiffany Zolkowski, Zach Fansler, the Democrat Party system, along with the AEA and the unions, is going to see to it he's got at least 30 grand in his bank account, which neither of these other two young ladies are going to have any access to. They're gonna buy this chair for CJ McCormick, and that's pretty much just the way it looks to me from here.
Is there going to be any kind of? I mean, I know again the challenge of the being in the rural communities with no road systems or anything else. Is there going to be any kind of debate or public forum or anything where you guys are going to get a chance to compare and contrast against each other, or is this just basically kind of a one-on-one? Whisper campaign kind of, you tell a friend and they tell a friend, and is there any gatherings where you guys are going to get a chance to come together and debate, or a Zoom meeting or something? I mean, what's going on with that?
No, there'll be zero chance of that. I mean, these Democrats out here all been trained by Lyman Hoffman, and nobody can't say Lyman isn't smart when it comes to politics, because he certainly is. And Lyman has not had a public forum to where you can go and talk to him as a crowd and get him sitting there having to field questions that he's not prepped for, or where he can't get you in his little legislative conference room one-on-one and pound his ideas into you. That don't happen. Lyman has taught him you never ever go to any of these type of things. So there's been zero public forums. There's no let's go have coffee at the cafe type deals. And like you say, for me, just to go, I'm only a little over 80 miles from Bethel as the crow flies, airplane flight. For me to go to Bethel, round trip, $460. And that's part of the district, and we're one of the bigger villages, and in between us is 4 other villages, and each village is over $150 one way to Bethel, and there's 57 of us villages out here. The system is set up and designed out here to never get rid of a Democrat. That's the bottom line. Once you're in, you are in for life, or until you finally do something that they have to kick you out, like Zach Vansler or one of those type of guys.
Right.
It's pretty well odds stacked against anybody with common sense or any conservative values. But that doesn't stop us from going and doing what we want. C.J. McCormick, Lyman Hoffman, Tiffany Zolkowski could have all called into our FM radio station where I do a radio show on Fridays, which is a real low power band. It only plays in Dillingham and Bethel proper. And they could call in and talk anytime they want. Stevie will give them a half hour on there, let them rock and roll. And none of them have ever done that. They all stick over here to what I call it public communist radio, and that's KYUK, or as most old timers in Bethel call it Hoffman radio, because that's who runs the board. That's who tells the people, if you like your funding, you better not cross this line. That those guys are the enemy, and the Democrats are the true heroes, and that's just how public communist radio out here rock and rolls and operates.
Right.
That's pretty much where I'm at, and I appreciate the time you've given me this morning.
All right, well, I appreciate it. Ryan in the chat room says you could tack onto his charter. So I don't know if he's what he's doing, if he's running a charter out of there, but he just said it in the chat room. Willie can tack onto my charter. So if you do want to head out to do something like that, maybe hook up with Ryan and talk with him. So, all right, Willie. Well, thank you so much for calling in. I appreciate you being part of it today. Thanks for participating and giving us your thoughts from out there in the village. All right, that brings us over to, well, we're 50 seconds away from rejoining the radio. So we're about ready to get back into it. I see, Terry, I meant to mention this yesterday. I'd heard that you'd been in an accident, and I'm so sorry. And if there's anything we can do to help as listeners to help you out, she was in an accident and broke her pelvis, which, ow, I can't imagine. And that was on, I guess, was that Father's Day? It was, anyway, so sorry. Appreciate you listening, and hopefully you get a fast recovery, Terry. We'd love to see you get better soon. All right, here we go. Jumping back in, the Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio.
The Michael Duke Show. Not your daddy. Wait, sorry. Not your daddy? Ooh, not your daddy's talk radio. Whew. I was scared for a second. Thought we were going down. Here's Michael Dukes and the show.
Okay. Interesting conversation with Willie there. You get just a little bit of a peek into what things look like in some of the other areas around the state, including some of the rural communities and the difficulties. You don't think about it. Willie was just saying, that he's 80 miles away from Bethel with 4 villages between him and Bethel. It's not like you can go out there and, knock on doors, so to speak, in all these various communities that you're supposed to be representing. And it makes it very difficult to try and unseat an incumbent without being able to go out there and get your points across and letting your voice be heard, et cetera, et cetera. So definitely a little bit of a different flavor of what's happening out there. One of the challenges, I think it's going to be interesting, and one of the things that people are going to be unprepared for, and one of the reasons why there's not a lot happening. Normally, this would be like high cotton season right here, right? Historically, this time after the session, but before the primary, the August 20th primaries, this would be the prime season for candidates to be out, to be talking to their constituencies. You'd be hearing a lot more advertising on the radio or the television. they'd be attending meet and greets and fundraisers and things like that. But because, again, with the exception of, I believe, 2 districts out of the 40 districts, there are 4 candidates or less for all these seats out here. This is one of those things that ranked choice voting pulled together, where now these people, although they may be on the primary ballot on August the 20th, the August the 20th primary is really kind of useless, except for those 2 races where they have 5 people in those races. Because with the ranked choice voting, of course, you get to rank all the candidates that are there on the primary, and only the top 4 continue on. Well, if you only have 4 candidates to begin with, then it doesn't really matter. Now, in this instance, the only one that really does matter is the race for U.S. I mean, well, they all matter. Don't get me wrong, but the one that really counts in this case is the race for U.S. House, because Nick Begich has made the commitment that if he gets beat in the primary by Nancy Dahlstrom, he will drop out. And we've been hoping that Nancy would make a similar commitment based on what happened in the last House race between Palin and Begich and Peltola. So that there's not a spoiler in that race. So if Begich does beat Dahlstrom in that, we would hope that she would drop out and not continue to be a third candidate spoiler in a 2-way race, because that's the same thing that Nick has already committed to. But for the most part, these races really mean nothing. So nobody is incentivized to get out there and to meet the people, to greet, to talk, to get on the radio, to solidify their positions. I think a lot of that will be happening. It's going to really concise down what's going to be happening closer to the general election. I think that's when it's going to be. I think that's when it's going to be, and then it will be hot and heavy. I mean, from August 20th until Election Day, it's going to be a horse race. I mean, it's just going to be one thing after another. But that means that right now things are kind of slow. I have a hard time believing that many of these races with 3 or 4 people, that many of them, they're not going to get that plurality vote right out of the gate. So we're gonna see some interesting things happen this go around. And with the fact that ranked choice voting, as of right now, is going to be on the ballot, let's hope that gets reversed as well. All right, let's continue on. We got a phone call here. I want to see what's on folks' minds, and we'll get started. Good morning. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hi, Michael. My name is Cole Snodgrass. I am a House District candidate for 36. I just want to put the word out, having a first meet and greet this Sunday, June 23rd at 1 p.m. At Murphy Dome, 4850. I know I'm throwing my name in the hat with no name recognition, so it's kind of an uphill battle from here on out, but just got to start somewhere. So be a chance to have a meet and greet, hear a few of my core values and why I'm running, and hear your comments and concerns as well.
Well, that'd be great, Cole. So I'll tell you what, do me a favor, and I'll have you on the program and we can discuss some of your positions and thoughts and things like that. Your meet and greet is going to be when and where again?
It'll be June 23rd at 1 p.m. So that'll be this Sunday, 4850 Murphy Dome Road.
Okay, 4850 Murphy Dome Road. Would you send me an email, Cole, and I'll put you on the schedule, and we'll get a chance to chat with you and talk about your position. We'll give you an hour of airtime or so, and we'll sit down and chat about why exactly you lost your mind and decided to do this. Just drop me an email at me@michaeldukeshow.com or go to my website and put on the, leave me you can connect with me there, or just send me an email, me@michaeldukeshow.com, and we'll get you on the show.
All right. Well, I appreciate that, Michael. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Cole. Appreciate you calling in. Thank you thanks for throwing your name in the ring out there, getting it done. All right. We talked about that. We'll see if Mike Shower is going to be joining us here in hour 2. Fingers crossed. Meanwhile, the Justice Department has announced its findings in its investigation of the Alaska Division of Elections. They are saying this was an investigation that's been going on for a while, and it has to do with the Americans with Disabilities Act. They say that the Division of Elections violated Title II of that act by failing to provide an accessible ballot for in-person voting, selecting inaccessible polling places for federal, state, and local elections, and for maintaining an inaccessible elections website. Now, those are all things that are required by the ADA, and they have come back with they've come back with this report that says, nope, you've been violating it the whole time. And they went as far back as apparently 2015 in some instances. There was one of the highlights of the report was in 2015, a visually impaired voter complained to the Human Rights Commission after finding that his local polling place lacked a voting machine that could accommodate him. And again, all these going back in nearly a decade. The investigation examined statewide elections held in 2022 and 2023. The DOJ found that, quote, Alaska discriminates on the basis of a disability, unquote. It was initiated in response to complaints that alleged that accessible voting machines that would allow persons with disabilities to vote privately and independently were either unavailable at voting sites or, if available, they did not work. This was the most shocking thing to me of this whole thing, that there were several instances where either one, the polling people, the people at the polls, were either not trained on how these ADA machines worked, or in some cases, what was the quote? I was just looking for the quote. People go to vote, they ask for an accessible machine. In some places, the worker is like, what? They don't even have it set up. In at least one polling place, the machine was, quote, unassembled in its shipping box. In other locations, poll workers reported that they, quote, could not operate the accessible machines. I mean, so that's not a good look. It's not a good look for Alaska. I mean, I understand we got some geographic issues and we got everything else, but we went to the trouble of getting the machine, getting it there, but it's just sitting there in its shipping crate. We didn't bother to take it out, open it up, plug it in, put it together, do whatever to allow people with disabilities to be able to vote. That's a tough situation. The investigation concluded that Alaska must implement remedial measures to ensure voting is compliant with the ADA. Now, what's the penalty for that? I don't know. What's going to happen with that? I don't know. We'll go over this in further detail down the road. All right, we got to go. The Michael Duke Show. Common Sense Radio. Yes. Donna said I made a good point about the primaries being kind of polls. Is there any chance that any candidate gets over 50% of the first round of voting? I don't even know. I doubt, especially in a race with 3 or 4 people, maybe potentially in some of these, there's a lot of two-way races out there. There's definitely a chance that those people could get in the first round, get 50%. But when you get to the third or the fourth candidate, yeah, no. And we won't even know about those candidates winning for, however long it's going to be. Interestingly enough, though, the presidential race does not include the ranking. It does not include that. And what was Scooter's comment on that? installing. This is Scooter Kendall in this article from the Alaska Beacon. I think Claire Stremple. Who is it? It's James Brooks. Sorry, James Brooks from the Alaska Beacon. Scott Kendall, who wrote the attorney who wrote most of the ballot measure that created the Alaska's current ranked choice voting system, says that in the statewide elections, there's no top 4 primary for president. When you go to the polls in November, you'll use ranked choice voting and likely will have the opportunity to rank more than 4 people. Now, that's good for people who want to maybe put people like Bobby Kennedy, like RFK Jr. They may want to. They may be happy about that because then they could still vote for RFK and then choose one of the other candidates as their second choice. That's an interesting thing. But what got me was installing. This is what Kendall's comment was: installing, because there's no primary. Installing a state-run top 4 primary would have been, quote, an unnecessary exercise and would have disrupted the, quote, time-honored tradition of party-run presidential primaries. So he's all about party-run primaries for the presidency because that's a time-honored tradition. But he's not about party-run primaries for any other office whatsoever. That's where ranked choice. It's, again, the mental gymnastics sometimes for people who are lawyers is just, it's astonishing to watch. It just the justifications in the mental gymnastics department on that is astounding. All right, let's do our fingers crossed here thing and see if we can reach out to Mr. Shawa and get him on the phone. Because again, I did not confirm with him yesterday that we were good to go. So let's check it out. Hola. Hey, I was just feeling bad that I didn't call. I forgot to call yesterday to confirm, so I was unsure. I was telling the people that if you didn't answer this morning, it wasn't your fault because I failed to confirm yesterday with you.
What kind of host are you?
Yeah, I know. What kind of radio host am I? I mean, I've only got 3 full-time jobs that I'm running at once. I mean, what's the deal, slacker?
7 years of college wasted.
7 years of college. Yeah, exactly. Maybe 7 hours of college wasted, but it's all good. So you're ready. We got stuff going on. I'm ready to just unleash the beasts with you today. I mean, you want to talk about the state of the state, the state of the nation, what you see, ranked choice. I say we just go free reign. We just powwow style this morning. What do you think?
Sure. I'm game.
Right. Okay. All right. You're game.
Okay.
You're ready.
Whatever you say.
Yeah, whatever.
You're the host.
I'm in charge. I'm in charge here. That's a terrifying thought right there. Absolutely terrifying. All right. Well, hold the line for just a second here. Let me get caught up here. The Division of Elections, says Terry, is one of the most incompetent departments I've ever dealt with. Frank says the ADA voting machine was scheduled to be assembled on a state-paid holiday. Ryan says that's unavoidable. I mean, that's the point, right? I mean, who spends however much money one of the disability voting machines costs, which I'm assuming that they're probably more expensive than a standard voting machine, who spends all that money and then leaves it in its packing crate and never bothers to even set it up? I mean, you'd think somebody would be like, maybe we should, it's here. Maybe we should. I don't know. I just don't know. That just seems a little anticlimactic. All right. What is your position? Okay. All right. I guess that brings us here. Scooter's unintended consequence, says Kevin, eliminate the primary for most races. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if they saw that happening or not, but again, as long as he achieved his main goal, which was making sure that Lisa Murkowski was protected, then everything else is just, again, unintended consequences. All right. Dozer's in the green room, ready to go. We're going to continue with him here in just a moment. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Back with more. Let's do it.
Whoa, buddy. Put that thing back in its holster. We haven't gone anywhere.
I don't understand.
Check out the MichaelDukesShow.com for information on how to get access to the podcast.
Welcome to the party, pal.
The Michael Dukes Show.
The greed and the entitlement is astounding to me.
What more could you want from a low-budget radio program?
This is a dumpster fire.
That's just BS.
It is time to get a new perspective.
We know just what you need, and we've got just the cure. Open wide and prepare for a steaming hot cup of freedom.
I just don't fathom it.
The Michael Dukes Show, streaming live across the world.
Oh, yeah. Live around the world on the interwebs at michaeldukeshow.com and across the state of Alaska on this your favorite radio station and or FM translator. Good morning, my friends. Welcome to the program. It is Hump Day, middle of the week, downhill slide, ready for Firearms Friday. Chris Chang, our guest this week, and more. Welcome back to the program, and thanks for coming in to join us. Also coming up this week, I forgot to mention earlier in hour one, but coming up tomorrow, we're going to be talking with Aaron Smith from Reason Magazine about his latest article on education and the state of education in the country, and specifically how some of it relates back to Alaska. That will be coming up tomorrow in the 7 o'clock hour. So that should be a good discussion. But right now, it's time for what we lovingly call the shower hour of power. Yeah, it's time to get a chance to sit down and chat with my favorite senator. That would be State Senator Mike Shower, who joins us this morning to discuss, kind of everything. I kind of just told him here a second ago during the break that, how about we just kind of powwow and talk about the state of the state, the state of the country, the state of everything, and get it's going to be Hot Take Wednesday on everything. So let's get started and bring him on the program. Good morning, my friend. How are you this morning on this bright and sunny day?
I'm doing great. Can you say powwow? Isn't that cultural appropriation? Are you allowed to say that anymore?
You know what? I don't care. That's just how it is. I mean, it probably somebody would probably scream that is cultural appropriation. But there you. What if I said I wanted to walk a mile in your moccasins? Is that cultural appropriation? I just
don't know.
I just don't even know. You know what? Because I don't care. It doesn't matter. What's the hubbub, bub? We're gonna do our thing here. We're just gonna make it happen. All right. So Mike, you're looking at all this, and I don't know if you want to comment. We were just talking about the federal government, the federal investigation from the DOJ finding that we violated the ADA voter laws. And a couple people in the chat room have said basically working with the Division of Elections was one of the most difficult things they've ever had to do in their life, and everything else. And that reminded me, of course, that you're still waiting for your report on elections from the Division of Elections, from the OMB, that, you've been trying to get that report for what? Are we going on 4 years now? 3 years, 4 years? To try.
Let's see.
Longer than that.
Out in July. It came out in July of 20. So this is
almost 4 years.
Up on July 24. So yeah, you're coming up on 5 years that report's been out there. I've been asking for it. Should have had it. I've been promised it at the highest levels of government that I would have it. I don't have it. And like I said, I at this point, there's been so much going on. I kind of have a pretty good idea what's in it, bits and pieces. But, the bottom line, as I kind of gather people that have seen it, and the redacted copy I was shown, Leslie said, well, yeah, we'll let you look at it, but you can't take it with you. And you have to sign an NDA, non-disclosure agreement, that we can hold you basically
civilly liable,
hostage, if you will. Yeah, liable if you say anything about we don't like, and we can sue you. So I have the administration telling me I'm going to be sued if I say anything they don't like if I read it. So what's the point of getting to read it if I can't therefore talk about it as a legislator, to bring up the topics, to discuss and debate them, so I can create legislation that would fix the identified problems in the report?
Right.
It's one of those things where you look at it, you go, are you kidding me? I mean, you're going to take taxpayer money to create a report that has no classified, no salacious data in it, and then I cannot use that report to create legislation to fix identified problems. It's just insanity, Mike. And at this point, you kind of look back and go, if there's nothing that was overly salacious, as I've learned, in this report, not that I've ever seen all the pages of it, but if there's not, why would you then not release that to the public? The only thing you can surmise is that there are things in there that would have made certain people look bad because we didn't do certain things, or we did things that we shouldn't have, right? So there are some things in there, like, I have heard, for example, that the Dominion voting machines were not tested as they should have been prior to the election. Well, that's a big no-no, right? I've heard, bits and pieces of it that certain things were supposed to have been done by government officials or ordered by that were not done. So there are things in the report that clearly probably would have some egg on some people's faces, probably as much as anybody, the prior lieutenant governor. However, there wasn't anything in there where it was like it was illegal, or it was like, just, the most damaging thing ever. So it's interesting to me, because I go, well, you created a scandal. You created something that probably wasn't a big deal. And had you just put it out there and said, look, this is the report we asked for, this is the things that were found, we're going to work on fixing them, people go, yay, good for you. Good on you, right? Instead, you create a report, you let it know that there is a report, and then you won't let anybody see it.
Right.
What do you think people are going to think about you doing that?
That definitely raises some people's eyebrows. And I keep throwing the OMB under the bus. Thank you, Donna. I'm sorry. It was the division. It was the Department of Administration. Kelly Shabaka was a commissioner at the time. She was the one that was working on that. Not the OMB, but the Department of Administration. And you're right, Mike. I mean, the cockroaches hate sunlight, right? I mean, that's the whole thing. I mean, the transparency in government, the trust in government erodes when we don't have transparency, and the trust in elections erodes when people are throwing assertions out there that may or may not be true, but could be either be proven or disproven by a report like this. And again, that creates a distrust of some of the basic, again, these are both things that go back into the basic foundational principles of trust in government, either the transparency or the integrity of elections. I mean, those things need to, and again, most of this would point to the previous lieutenant governor who's not even in office. Have you spoken to Lieutenant Governor Dahlstrom about this? And, have you asked her as the head of as the leader, that's the one thing the lieutenant governor has real oversight of, is the division of elections. Have you asked her to expedite this report out to you?
Yes.
And the answer was?
Yes, I don't have the report yet, do I?
Okay, so was the non-answer the answer, or was there an actual answer? I guess that's what I want to know. I mean, did she be like, "Oh, I'll get right on that," and then you never heard from her again? Did she just ignore the request? What happened here? What is the? I mean, I know you don't have the report, but what I want to know is specifics of people who you've talked to. I know you talked to Machicki when he was the president of the Senate, and he was very reticent to try and use any kind of powers of subpoena or anything else like that to get some of that stuff out there. I know you've had conversations with the governor about it, who said that's not really my department, that's the lieutenant governor's job. And now you've had a conversation with the lieutenant governor. What I want to know is, what has the response, not just the response of inaction, but what do they say to you when you ask these questions?
Well, I've heard all manner of reasons why at this point. Like I said, originally I made enough of a squawk about it to include, threatening that I would get a subpoena, that I was allowed, well, we'll let you look at it. And that's when I was shocked when I went up there and they showed me reports that had, over half of it was blacked out, including every single one of the 3.5 pages of recommendations of findings of the report. I'm like, this is just ridiculous. And it was Ruaro, I believe, was the one lawyer for the time at the administration. Was like, well, you can look at it, but you have to sign this, 1,800-page NDA, that takes everything but your firstborn if we don't like what you do. I'm like looking at him like, are you freaking kidding me?
This is a public report. This is a public
Exactly.
report on a public agency that is the cornerstone foundation of our republic, the voting system, and they've redacted all the recommendations because they're top secret? This is national security? What the hell is going on?
I've seen less redacted copies of stuff at that national level. So it's odd, Mike. It's a really odd thing. I don't know. I don't understand it. I'm never going to. I never have understood people that hide things, because hiding things is much worse. It's like the lie, right? It's not that you did something, it's that you lie about it, because that's what gets you in trouble. That's what causes the next lie, the bigger lie. That's what people find unforgiving. That, it's not that you did something wrong. It's the old Bill Clinton, right? I did not have sex with that woman. And everybody's, well, I made a mistake. I can forgive him. People kind of move on, right? But when you lie to the next thing, that's when people look at you and go, no, because you're not trustworthy. Not only did you make a mistake, you lied about it. In other words, you're not trustworthy anymore. So people are Americans especially, very forgiving if you fess up and say you screwed up, right? But not when you lie to them repeatedly. Now, that's interesting I say that, because then you go into the elections, you look at officials that lie to them all the time and they keep electing them. So, there's apparently they're pretty forgiving about people that lie to them as well. I don't know, Mike. There's part of that, and part of it, sometimes you think people have almost given up on the system, which is unfortunate, because that's exactly what the power players want us to do.
Right.
They want us to give up, and so they just basically got control and they can do what they want, and they've got the power, right? I mean, they have the money, they have the press, the media, the narrative. They've got the big movies push that crap on you all day long, like Disney, Disney Plus. I mean, it's one bad thing after another. I mean, are you kidding me? They're ruining Star Wars. Have you seen the hubbub about the latest Star Wars?
Yeah.
No. LGBT activist lady that hates white guys, and she said there will be no more males. It's going to be all. I'm like, and so people have looked at it and go, well, Star Wars is dead. You killed Star Wars. I mean, it's people, I think, are so frustrated that in a way on a lot of things like that, they've just kind of given up. They go, that's not worth fighting it anymore, because they're not going to change, and they're after the country. They want the United States to be brought to its knees, and they want the traditional God-fearing, law and order, constitutionally based republic to fail, so that they can put in place the government they want that fits in with the world cabal, so they have the power. I mean, look, Mike, anybody that can read history knows that's where we're headed. That's the whole goal, right? What do people with power want? More power. They always have. So it's going to be interesting to watch, because I still think we're the last bulwark against this march in this direction of a stronger and more powerful, not just government, but a world government, United Nations, et cetera.
Right.
And most Americans are like, not really interested in that. But it's happened just about everywhere else.
Look, I love everything you just said. But you still didn't tell me what the lieutenant governor said to you. Did they?
Oh, well, that's I just get ignored.
You just got ignored. Okay, so you got this. So the request was ignored. Okay, that was my question. It wasn't that she's like, "Oh, we'll get to it. I'll work on it," and then she just forgot about. No, she just ignores the request.
Was it over when the Germans bombed Pearl Harbor?
Right.
Let him go. He's on a roll.
Kim in the chat room says Nancy was asked directly during the state convention about releasing the report, and she said that it was the governor's report and it was up to him to release it.
Huh. Interesting. We pass the buck along, don't we? Here, pass the plate around. You just keep passing the plate.
This is the time where I wish I was really good friends with some attorney who really had an axe to grind with the state and really wanted to just go and stick it to somebody on this, because that's what's going to need to happen. You're going to have to.
Well, hire Scott Kendall. Everybody else does.
Yeah, you should hire
Sure,
Scott Kendall. You should hire Scott Kendall on that. Scott should get right on that right now. Mike Shower is our guest. We're going to continue with this. I get so angry about this specific issue because, again, it's not like we're talking about where's the nuclear football and what about our strategic defense plan. We're talking about elections in a report paid for by the government that's supposed to find the problems and efficiencies, and they've redacted the report to where you can't see it, the recommendations or the problems or the executive summary or anything else. If every person in Alaska doesn't go, what? I don't care what your political persuasion is. If you look at that and you say, what, how is redacting, first of all, how is redacting it even legal? And saying, well, this is this privileged information. You got to sign an NDA on the division of elections. Okay. Yeah, this raises a lot more questions. All right. Mike Shower is our guest. We're going to continue. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. We return with more in just a moment. Don't go anywhere. Back in just a few minutes. If you want, you can always join us over on Facebook or YouTube if you want to hang out in the chat room and talk during the break. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio.
Listened to by more staffers in Juneau than any other show, because their bosses told them to. And after what they just heard, oh man, they're going to be pissed.
You're a bad, bad man.
The Michael Duke Show.
All right. Fat Ray said, oh no, Michael called it a republic. Now he's a threat to our democracy. Yeah, I did say republic. We are a constitutional republic with a democratic style voting system. The democracy component of it is that every person gets a vote, but we are a constitutional republic. I mean, nobody teaches that stuff anymore, but I'm trying to be as accurate as I can be. Greg,
Michael, the founders looked at it and they rejected that system. They said it was not an appropriate form of government. They debated a pure democracy as one of the options.
It was two wolves and a sheep deciding on what's for dinner. That's what Franklin said. Yeah. Right? I mean, they looked at it. Yes, it was one of the things they looked at. That's why we have a representational government, a constitutional republic with a constitution that guides everything, and then the proportional representation of a republic, that's what keeps everything in check. It's a man. Greg says, and Nancy is running for federal office. I don't think she has the integrity. Well, I guess that's a bigger question, Mike. You're looking at this. Well, I don't know. Are you throwing your endorsement into the U.S. House race, Mike? At anything? Are you endorsing a candidate or willing to comment on the candidates on any of these?
Well, I did a long time ago, so I have no problem with it, because this gets sticky for people that are afraid to endorse somebody or support them. And I go back to what I said years ago. Nick Bakich, who I know some people in your program don't like, and they don't like the Bakich name, but I'm here to tell you, as I've told you before, I support Nick. I've spent many hours grilling him on his position on things. I've seen him just in the last few years mature, in the sense politically that he understands the issues. He's learned how to speak about them, where he needs to focus. His speaking has gotten far, far better than it used to be. I mean, it takes practice sometimes, right? It's not always a natural thing to be an orator in front of people in a crowd. And he's not of the Begich family. That's the Alaska Begich. I know some people have their conspiracy theories and they're going to stick to them and they'll never believe otherwise, and so be it. But I supported Nick before Don Young passed away when he put his name in the hat with his own money and got tired of waiting on Don Young to endorse him because Don told him for years that he would. And like I told you before, I had that conversation with Tom Begich on the Senate floor before I knew who Nick Begich was, that told me about this conservative nephew he had, and that they at family gatherings that they would never even talk politics because they almost get into fistfights. That's why I found out like a couple months later when Nick announced, like, oh, he was talking about Nick. So I know for a fact the guy is conservative. His own family hates him politically. So the rumors and stuff that whatever crowd, the Palin crowd or whoever it is spreads is not true. And so I have supported Nick since that time. And long before Nancy put her name in the race, I had already once again shaken Nick's hand, said, I support you again, brother. Let's win this one. And we had just one guy in the race, spending his own money out there canvassing the state. And that was Begich again, Nick Begich, long before anybody else was in the race. And then here we are with more people jumping in towards the end. So my support of Nick is not anti anybody else. It has been consistent with a handshake from the very beginning. And I still support him. And I think that he's actually getting, like I said, more mature as a candidate with better positions. And I talk to him regularly. If I call Nick, he answers the phone. And we discuss issues that are taking place and things. And he's gotten very good at being able to slide the scale. I can talk to Nick about what's happening in Russia and Europe and South America and China and other places, and right down to local issues here in the Matsu. And he's learning those issues and has become very educated on them. So again, it's not an anti anybody other than anti Poltola, who I completely disagree with. It is a support of Nick, and I'm not going to back off on that. So there you go.
I'm going to open up a whole can of whoop ass here in just a second, because I'm going to talk about the endorsements as well. And the presidential endorsements. I mean, we're just going to run far afield, but we're running amok today, Mike. It is what it is. All right, let's get to it. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Like, share, subscribe, ring the bell, do all that stuff. Things that, yeah.
The Michael Duke Show. Seriously humorous with a pinch of intellect. Sorry. That is humorous. Here's Michael Dukes.
Yeah. Okay. So we were just talking with Mike during the break, and we were talking about, Nancy Dahlstrom, of course, is the leader of the Division of Elections as lieutenant governor, which led me over to this whole discussion on the House race. Mike once again reinforced his support of Nick Begich as the candidate that he's chosen in that race. And he'd supported Nick Begich previously and everything else. Before Nancy ever got in, he supported Nick. And yet we get this candidate in there. There was already 12 candidates or 11 candidates in the race, right? I mean, and then Nancy just threw her hat in the ring. And now she's been endorsed by the National Republican Senatorial Committee and the thing, and the Mitch McConnells and everything else. And now the president former President Donald Trump has now endorsed her as the candidate. And his commentary was just kind of hysterical on it. And then, especially because in the straw polling that took place during the convention, in April, Begich received like a standing O, right? I mean, when everybody got up there, Dahlstrom got kind of this mild applause. There was an informal poll there done by Must Read. It indicated he had significantly more support than Dahlstrom. And then her comment was, now more than ever, we need real conservative leadership in Washington to right the ship, and I look forward to working with the president. I mean, real conservative. I mean, I'm shaking my head here, Mike. This tied to the fact that she told people that even that the governor's in charge of the report, even though the governor told you that the lieutenant governor is in charge of the report. We're getting all these mixed signals. What is your thoughts on President Trump endorsing her over Begich, who'd been in Mar-a-Lago recently, spoken to the president, done all this kind of stuff? What's your thoughts on this?
I think that there's some people that got to him from this state that know him or have conversations with him that told him that, she's the one, probably that she was well liked or that she had the best chance or whatever the reasons were. And that, maybe Begich comes from a Democrat family or who knows what was said to him. Here's what I am pretty confident of. I doubt that Donald Trump knows the politics of Alaska. I doubt that Donald Trump knows that there are wildly different, support levels, like at the Republican convention you talked about for Begich versus Dahlstrom. I doubt that Trump has any personal knowledge of Nick Begich and what his politics are and where he really stands on the issues versus Nancy Dahlstrom. And I doubt that he, if he could sit down with both of them for hours or knew all of that, would have perhaps given his endorsement. Might have been better to just stay silent. So I think that I am sure that people that know him and talk to him said, this is the best thing, this is what we need to do, whatever it is. And Donald probably just goes, oh, okay, happy to do it, because Mike, it's a small state. We're way away from DC. And do you think with everything that guy's got going on, he has time to know the intricacies in politics and interpersonal issues of the candidates in Alaska for the House race? No. What does he broadly know? Oh, Patola's a Democrat. We need to get rid of her. She votes with Biden. Yep. Who do you got? Oh, Nancy Dahlstrom. Here, okay, well, I'll support her. What's the other guy? Oh, Begich, I met him. Yeah, well, he's got Democrat tendencies. You really, he comes from a long line of Democrats. He's probably like, oh,
right.
okay, well,
he's got
I'll
Democrat
post this out there.
tendencies. I love that. He's got Democrat tendencies. In what way
I
does
don't
he
think
have
he knows.
Democrat? Yeah, what you keep using that word. It doesn't mean what you think it means. I mean,
don't think it means what you think it means.
I mean, that's exactly where we're at. I mean, and like she's the one, and he blamed Begich for Peltola getting in there because he refused to drop out for Palin. He was already there. I mean, this is,
I know, more lies.
I mean, this whole this whole thing just makes you look at it and go, this is why I distrust everything that's going on everywhere
Palin
in
was
government right now.
The last time I've seen some of the articles or the article and some of the comments on Must Read people saying, well, he did this twice. He was beat by Palin twice. No, he wasn't. Palin barely campaigned here. She was MIA for most of it. She was out of this state most of the time. Listen to her talking the issues is not even close to the level of Begich's ability to understand and illuminate the issues, because I've asked and been at some of the events where she gave the 30-second sound bites that they sound good, but once you drill down, I think the ability and the knowledge level is lacking to handle that. I think it was somebody looking for the spotlight that had lost it, Mike. That's my opinion. And that's what I think it came to at the end of the day in the previous race. And then you had the same guy who has matured, learned a lot more, doing really well, come along. And then the powers that be, perhaps, I could be wrong, but perhaps the powers that be think that Nick Begich is too conservative and they don't want him in Congress as a spoiler.
Right,
they don't want him joining Freedom Caucus or anything else, and go, maybe we want somebody that's less of a rock the boat person. And I'm not saying anything about Dahlstrom. I'm saying I think that Nick has been there. I know he's been there and talked to some of them. And I think that maybe they think he's going to be too much of one of those guys.
Right.
And so they're looking for somebody else other than him. And I'm sure some of those also have the ear of Trump.
Well, and
so again, I go back to where people. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, that this is the good old boys club. The endorsement came came the same day that Speaker of the House Mike Johnson visited Trump in Mar-a-Lago. There was also Richard Hudson, who was the chair of the National Republican Congressional Committee, and Johnson said that party leaders recruited Dahlstrom to run for office. They don't want more conservative people. They don't want another Thomas Massey in there. They don't want somebody else in there who's going to rock the boat. They want good little soldiers who will do what they're told. They don't want somebody who can think for themselves and is conservative like Nick Begich.
Yeah, maybe it's just that simple, Michael. So I go back to, being upset with Trump. You can be for doing this, but I think Trump was asked, hey, this is what we need you to do in this race. He's okay. And there's probably 100 other races like that that he doesn't really know all the particulars, but he's trusting people and advisors around him to say, yeah, support this guy. Give this guy your handshake. Because there are really, truly only a handful of people out there that are with him on the campaign trail, that have supported him the entire time, that have been there on TV saying, support this guy. He's right. They're wrong. The whole system's coming after him, the whole swamp. There's not a lot of those out there, Mike. So he doesn't know all these details. He can't. So he's being fed things, and then he's going to go sit out his support and go, well, we need this one and this one and this one, right? So nobody can know all these details. There's too many. It's too spread out and it's too big. So, you can get mad at the Don for doing this, but I don't think it was him per se. I think he was, at the bequest of people around him and others that asked him to put out this endorsement. It's one of many he's done. So again, has Begich or Dahlstrom been on the campaign trail with him, or out there giving speeches on the national stage? No. So how would he know? Anyways, moving on. But there you go.
Well, and that's, look, this whole thing is just so frustrating to watch at this point, and see again the powers that be manipulating state politics in this way. But it is, I guess, it is it is what it is at this point. Overall, your thoughts on the election here in the state and the effects that things are going to have here in the state. We obviously have a similar problem here with the powers that be, with the good old boys club, the entrenched legislators who apparently are just going to go back until they die. They're just going to keep, if they run, they're going to get elected no matter what. So even if we change out big swaths of the legislature, we've still got this problem of, we saw it in the Senate. People who've been there for 20 years who are just, keeping on, no matter how much people may want to change. What does this election mean for people in regards to that?
Well, you've hit the nail on the head on at least the issue of change, right? Because you can change out a lot of the players, but at the end of the day, it's not like we have a super majority of Republicans, right? Because that's what would give you some options to be able to have some divergence. You could have some that go, I don't agree with that. And you would still go, well, you can join us or not, but we got the numbers. We have our 1121, right? So it doesn't matter. The problem is, you look at the House for years, you had those 5 or 6 traitor Republicans that joined the Democrats, even when there was a higher number of Republicans, right? And those 5 or 6 would go swing and join that Democrat coalition and hand them power, even though there was more Republicans. Well, guess what? Now, this last 2 years, the House finally held it together with Republicans in charge, and the Senate went the other way. So you look at it, go, well, we change out the players, but if you have 3 or 4 of those key players come back every time, and there's only 11 Republicans and 9 Democrats, it only takes a couple of those Republicans willing to, sell their soul to the Democrats for there to be no Republican majority. And people go, well, why can't you just do X, Y, Z? Because that's the number. They hold us hostage. We can go, well, we're not agreeing to that. They go, fine, I'm going to go the other way. That's how the negotiations go, Michael. That's the bottom line of negotiating and organizing, is they come in and I want this, this, and this. And if I don't get this, then I go the other way. There was a certain key House member from the Matsu that did that to the coalition, said, I want this position or else I walk and I join the Democrats. Really? That's somebody that you would say was supposedly conservative. So the point is that you have legislators who are more than happy, as long as they get what they want and they come from a district that doesn't seem to care what they do, well, they can do that. They can swing the balance of power. It only takes a couple. Again, if we had 14 or 15 Republicans and only 5 or 6 Democrats, we could probably make it work, right? Because there could be enough variance in there that a couple of them said, I want X, Y, Z. We'll go, fine, you're out. That's happened before, the Muskox caucus and other things, right? It happened kind of this time. Although this time, what was different this time, the evil of this one was that, Hughes, Myers, and myself weren't even given an option to sit down and organize and say what we might agree to or not, even though we tried and we made phone calls and we had conversations and we gave them some options. They didn't listen. They didn't care. They wanted what they wanted. They wanted their binding caucus. And it's unfortunate that 3 or 4 of those Republicans probably don't agree with being in the supermajority, but they did it anyways, right? And so when you have just a couple, because your numbers are so tightly balanced of Republican and Democrat, you really are held hostage. And frankly, even looking at the House, it really is amazing that Kathy Tilton held it together like she did, because you have those Bush caucus members, and one of the 4, Thomas Baker, is a Republican and conservative. and he stuck with the Republicans there. But you had the other three, right, with their 23-person majority. So there were times the Bush caucus went the other way, and the Republican majority caucus was not successful in blocking something or voting for something, because 3 members out of 23 could hold them hostage, and they go, "We're not voting for that." And then it was a 2020 and it would fail. So again, when people get frustrated by the system, the reality, folks, that is our system of governance, that republic you talk about and how it is set up, is that when you organize, you have to have the appropriate numbers. Now, what is odd about Alaska has always been, like the binding caucus and other things, is that just about anywhere else in the country, including the federal government, when a party has the majority of numbers, even if it's by one, they're in power. There's no question. There's no negotiating. There's no joining the other side. They pretty much are in power. That's it. In Alaska, we don't operate that way. We're our own weird beast, right? Because we have this binding caucus rule that nobody else operates even close to something like we do. Bits and pieces, yes, but not like we do it. And they always show Alaska as a red state. Why? Because what do they look at, Mike? They go, you got more Republicans. You got more Republicans in the electorate. You got more Republicans in the House and the Senate. You're a red state. No, we're not. We're not. You clearly don't understand this state at all, because more Republicans means nothing in the state of Alaska for Republican control or Republican governments. It means nothing. So we all know that. Your audience knows that.
Right. So the bottom line here is that we've got a few key positions where if we could change out some of the wishy-washy, we might be able to, even with the old guard in there, we might be able to gain more control. Is that correct? I got 60 seconds, less than 60 seconds here.
Yeah, I can do it in less than that, because I mean, remember 4 years ago we organized, we had Holland and Costello and others, and we had about 6 or 7 of us were more conservative than the other 5 or 6, but we have, I think, 12 Republicans at the time, or so. And I think Hoffman came over and joined us, and we wanted no binding caucus. And we were able to achieve that because we had enough numbers, right, at the time, that those 4 or 5 Republicans were not willing to go join with all the crazy Democrats. And so we were able to organize, and we were able to have power, and we had a relatively strong majority. We still argued about things, but the bottom line is that, and by the way, the only time since Walker started taking the PFD, the only time you've had a full PFD is, guess what? That second year of that non-binding caucus, because I was able to get it passed. So, anyways, yeah, we'll see. I don't know. It's possible.
All right, Mike Shower's our guest. He gets to pick the topic for the next segment, so we're going to see what kind of train wreck that is. It's going to be fantastic. Back with more of The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio.
Running on 100% pure beard power. Oh, also some coffee. We dip our beard in coffee.
Ha, nice beard.
The Michael Duke Show.
All right. We are in the break right now. Mike Shower is our guest. Teresa is speaking my language here. She says, I'm so tired of picking the lesser of two evils in the voting booth. Yeah, I mean, that's right. Because they're like, well, you get a choice. It's just, what's it? I'm like, yeah, what if I told you that the lesser of two evils was still evil? I mean, right? I mean, that's kind of always been my thing. What about that? I mean, it's so frustrating.
But I understand the frustration.
Yeah.
But I go back to, what are your alternatives? To destroy the system and create a dictatorship? Because that's a wonderfully efficient means of government. Just doesn't always work out good for the people. So that's an option, right? We could go to a pure democracy. We're going to be ruled by Los Angeles and New York and DC. You cool with that? Because that's another option, right? I mean, so my point, Mike, is I'm not arguing that, right? Because I understand it, and I'm often frustrated in the same way. Nobody on this program is more frustrated than me, because I'm in the middle of the battle and can't get these things done that I think are important for our state and our future. So, but the question comes back to, well, what do you do? I am frustrated having to pick the lesser of two evils when I'm voting at different things, but you find me a better system. Find me people that are going to step up and run that can win.
Right.
Yeah, plenty of people step up and run, Mike, but they're not viable candidates.
Right.
Well, we have the same one right now putting their name in again and again and again, and they're always going to lose. And we don't have this. Some people complain all the time, and I ask them, well, what have you done? If you don't like it, what have you done? Have you stepped up and run? Have you run for community council, even just something low level? Have you run for a school board and assembly, something where you can stay in your local community, never have to go to Juneau or anywhere else? Have you walked neighborhoods? Have you texted or made phone calls for people? Have you held out in freaking October when it's snowing and cold? Have you gone and held signs at a street corner for candidates that you like? Have you given them money?
Right.
Have you stepped up yourself to run? And the answer 99% of the times, no, I can't. I don't have time. I don't have that. It's like, don't complain. Don't complain.
Right.
I understand that people have jobs and work. So do I. I don't want to do this in the scheme of things. It takes away from my personal life, my family, my kids, my grandkids, things I want to do.
Right.
I'm missing all that, Mike, to do this job that is not fun.
Right.
And it's painful.
Well, like
but
you said,
the point is I'm willing to step into the gap to fight the battle.
Right.
And I ask others, if you don't like it, what are you doing to change it?
Right. Well, and it's the whole thing of, if what is the other option? I mean, it's the old Churchill comment of, this is the worst form of government except for all the others that have been tried, kind of thing. Yes, it's the worst. It's the least worst, essentially, in the long run. And I guess that is the lesser of all evil kind of comment, again, in a nutshell, paraphrasing it in a nutshell. But you're right. It's a frustration effect. And I've been where you've been, not at your level, but at this, at the borough level. It's the same kind of thing. I mean, it's just like, I didn't want to do this anymore. It's like smashing your face against the wall repeatedly until you're unconscious and then waking up and starting again. That's how people they say, how is it? I'd say, well, think about this. This is how it's like. And it's frustrating. It's ultimately frustrating to see this stuff happen and to be disappointed over and over and over again.
But if we don't have people step up and fight that battle, if we don't have people continually being involved in the process and being concerned enough about their state and country to get involved at whatever level they can afford to get involved, then you will lose the country to those that are willing to fight the battle, that are willing to step in and take seats of power. They will do that, Mike, because we're watching it happen every day. You have a good portion of our federal government, which is a banana republic now, that the president and his cronies and the intelligence and other apparatuses of the federal government are using the federal government to imprison and to charge their political opponent. This is stuff that happens in places like Venezuela and African countries. It's not supposed to happen in the good old United States, but it's happening today. So if you don't step up and all you do is complain about it, they're going to win. They're going to take over, and we're going to lose our country. There is no if, and, or but about that, period. They're on the march, and they've got grassroots and activism. They've got all the young kids because they've indoctrinated them, our public school system. Why do you think they're so reticent to let the Department of Education go away or to allow homeschooling? Right? Or charter schools, because they know that those kids are being pulled out of their indoctrination system, and that down the road in the next 10, 20, 30 years, those kids that are taught to love this country,
they'll think for themselves.
They'll think for themselves, and they won't be on their Democrat platform.
Yeah. Exactly.
Why do you think they're so angry about so many Black Americans jumping over and supporting Donald Trump? Because they're losing them off the modern day plantation, because that's what the Democrat Party is.
Yeah.
For Black Americans, they won't let them go, even though many Black Americans are waking up and go, wait a minute, what have the Democrats done for me lately?
What have you done for me lately? Yeah, exactly. All right.
They're starting to understand, right?
Hold the line. I got them all wrapped up. Now we're going to jump back to the radio. Here we go. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio. Like, share, subscribe, ring the bell. Let's get to it. Here we go. All right, finishing things up here, the Shower Hour of Power. State Senator Mike Shower, our guest. I got him all wound up during the commercial break, and so now we're just going to let him fly. I got to choose all the topics for discussion in the first two segments. Mike, what's been on your mind lately? Continuation of what we were just, whatever you want to talk about. What you got the floor. What's on your mind?
Well, I mean, a lot of what I'm watching is, we've talked a lot about the federal election and the federal government and where things are, and the Republic. And, as we wander through the different topics we could discuss in the program, but I am paying a lot of attention to the local races, right? And I say local in the state, because there are some interesting races taking place. The race for a Democrat or Republican in Fairbanks, that's got a lot of potential to hopefully have the Democrats lose a seat, which would be back to having 12 Republicans and 8 Democrats, which gives us a little more option, right? It makes it harder for certain Republicans to join with the Democrats, right? Because now you have more Republicans, and every time there's another Republican and less Democrats, it gets harder for somebody to justify if they have a good candidate step up against them, a strong candidate, right? It's harder for them to justify, well, I had to join with those Democrats. Well, you got plenty of Republicans. What do you do? What? No, that doesn't make sense. Harder for them to justify, right? I'm still hearing the rumor that, Senator Hughes and I and others worked with the FBI. I still heard that this week. I'm so tired of it, because there's a current member of the Senate majority that did work with the FBI and volunteered to work with the FBI. And I know it because I went and asked one of the agents that interrogated me years ago when they were investigating Von Imhoff and Revac and Johnston for bribery. And so there's a current member of that supermajority that's a Republican that did work with him, because I said, I'm keeping hearing this rumor that we were working with you. And I'm sitting here laughing, because I'm like, who in the legislature distrusts the federal government and agencies like that more than I do? I don't trust the federal government at all.
Right.
You think I'm going to work with that freaking agency? What, have you lost your mind? I trust them less than I trust stuff going on here. So it's kind of insanity, but there's still a legislator that is going around spreading that rumor. And I understand why now, because that rumor makes it so that legislator would not be the one that was questioned, right? So I'm hearing things like that are taking place. But so I'm really watching some of these races. But when we get to that point that you have enough Republicans, it's going to be hard for people like that to say, well, how come we can't have Shower, Hughes, and Myers in there? Well, because, they're just terrible people. Yeah, but you got enough Republicans, it doesn't matter. In other words, numbers matter, right? Even for these arguments. And so I'm watching some of the races evolve and going, it's a positive trend right now. Will ultimately, what happens in November will determine what our numbers are, but and I'm not discussing the House per se. The House has got some potential, hopefully, to pick up a couple seats. They could be even stronger. If there's some body change out in the House, you might have a strong Republican organization that actually organizes before they get to Juneau. Wouldn't that be something, right? It's always hard for the House to
rather
to
than
make
spend
that
the first month spinning wheels trying to get that done. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. But in the Senate side, there's the chance to pick up a seat. I know that McKay's running against Clayman. That's going to be a tough one, because Clayman has got so much money, so much deep pockets from all the big unions supporting him and whatnot. So that's going to be a tough seat to run and win. It's possible, but it's a tough one. But I just look at that and I go, if you came back with an extra Republican or so, and then you saw a longtime Republican go away, Click Bishop, that's a change, right? Because I'm confident that if Mike Cronk wins that seat with Bishop gone, Mike Cronk is not has been very open. He ain't joining with a bunch of Democrats. You're not nuts. So you start to see some shift of numbers, right? And then when you have maybe 4, 5, 6 Republicans that go, I ain't joining with those Democrats. Like I said, it gets harder for the other couple to go say, well, I'm going to join with them. And then how do you explain that? You just became the Muskox caucus again, right? That everybody hated. So it's interesting, and I say I'm paying attention to this because it's going to affect after the election in November how we are able to organize, and is there a pathway to a Senate majority that has Republicans and control again? And the answer is yes. Right. I don't know if it's possible yet. It will depend on numbers and personalities, but it is absolutely possible that we could do that this time around. And it would be nice to get the gavels out of the hands of the Democrats. And it would be nice to get them out of leadership positions and stop dealing with all the craziness we're dealing with, like defined benefits and increased education spending with no accountability, and defund the police and all the other crazy stuff coming out of that, out of the Senate. And you see somebody, I think it was Senator Stevens, Senate president, said something like, well, Click Bishop, it's not really going to affect the majority because we like this. And, there are some people that are happier in peas in a pod.
Yeah.
being with the Democrats and there as Republicans, and it's
Right.
frustrating.
Well, there's some good options here, right? I mean, so we got Ben Carpenter, who would, if he wins, would replace Bjorkman. We've got Mike Kronk, since Bishop's leaving, he could do it. Maybe the McKay race. Maybe the Kawasaki race against Hajdukovic, if Hajdukovic gets in there, although she's not as strong as I would like to see. That's 4. And even David Wilson's facing an opponent. So potentially you have the possibility here of changing over 5 seats in that regard. Add the 3 of you into there, and you would have a pretty strong, mostly conservative majority, mini majority inside the leadership, and you might be able to swing it the other way.
Possible. And like I said, the biggest thing about that, Mike, is not even talking binding caucus and other particulars, but it is Republicans that are saying, and everybody that we just mentioned there has pretty much said, I am not going to join a Democrat-dominated, Democrat-led majority. So that's an important aspect that I think people in your electorate should be looking at and going, look, if I send you as a Republican back to Juneau, are you going to join with Democrats? Are you going to give Democrats majority power again? That's a quintessential question that people should be asking. I don't care what your excuses are. I've already hearing some of the excuses at some meetings I'm going to. Well, I had to do this for power. I had to do this because of XYZ. I talked to a whole bunch of Republican leaders that told me, and then you ask, what Republican leaders? Well, Republican leaders, right? It's like, remember the movie Indiana Jones, the first one? And at the end of the movie, they were taking the Ark of the Covenant and they were putting it back in that warehouse with a billion boxes, so you couldn't tell what was what.
Right.
And was asking him, he's like, so who's going to look at this? They said experts. And he's like, who is going to look at it? And the guy looks and goes, experts. In other words, I'm not going to answer your question. And I've seen that from candidates already. And they go, I had to join with the Democrats. No, you didn't. You made a choice to give power to the Democrats. You made a choice. And so I think a quintessential question again for candidates running, for the citizens to be asking their candidates, if I vote for you, if I send you to Juneau, are you going to throw power to the Democrats again? And if the answer is yes, or the answer is I don't know, or the answer is the standard, I'll have to take a look at that and get back to you, then the answer is yes, they're going to join with Democrats again. So it is a key question of the races this year, of all of them, of course, House and Senate, but especially the Senate, to know who you're voting for and if the candidate you support or are going to give your vote to will answer yes or no. Not a spin answer, not the standard political answer that can be answered and mean anything. It needs to be a yes or no question. Will they join with Democrats once elected when we go to Juneau in the Alaska State Senate?
Yeah.
And if the answer is no, I won't, publicly for everybody to see it, then that means they probably would. You probably don't want to give your vote to them. That's my point. And that if enough people look at that as a criteria and say, we're not going to send people that are going to join with Democrats and give Democrats power when there's less of them, then we have a clear pathway to achieving a Republican majority, even with its disagreements,
right?
That would be back in power, which would block a lot of the craziness and et cetera. So there you go.
60 seconds, literally. No,
wow.
45 seconds. Final thoughts quickly.
Shoot, I don't know. 40 when nothing we talk about goes in 45 seconds. So
yeah, I know.
I guess I just
you have no idea what a watch is. You're like, it's I'm gonna be there. It'll be fine. Don't worry about it. All right, Mike Shower. Thank you for coming on board. As always, it was fun and irritating today to talk to you. My God, man.
I don't know what that means, but it sounds funny.
It sounds good. It sounds good. We appreciated it. Thank you for coming on board. Maybe next week we'll revisit again, and maybe next week I'll just let you. Maybe you ask me questions. I don't know. We'll do something different.
Hey, there you go. I'll be the host.
All right. Thanks for coming in, folks. We got coming up tomorrow, Aaron Smith with Reason Magazine, The Michael Duke Show. Be kind, love one another, live well. All right. In the commercial break, end of the show, Mike Shower. Now you don't have to watch the clock. I guess final thoughts on this. I mean, I guess we have to find our candidates. In discussion, we've been talking about the Senate here, but the same thing kind of applies to the House. There's an opportunity to strengthen the majority there, but flipping the Senate majority is a key component. And we've got five seats, 6 seats that could be flipped, but they're going to need help. I mean, we're talking about, Carpenter versus Bjorkman. We're talking about, McKay versus Clayman. We're talking about, Wilson being dethroned by one of his challengers. Jesse Sumner may step down, and maybe not Hollywood. I've forgotten her name. Underwood, not Hollywood. It's Underwood. Is there? There's a possibility. Hajdukovic versus Kawasaki, and of course Mike Kronk running. I mean, there's a real chance here to get 4 or 5 of those seats, and that could possibly mean a real solid majority. I think that's where the fight is at this point.
No, I agree with you, Mike. And like I said, that's the criteria to me. The criteria is, if you are elected, will you join with Democrats to create a supermajority and give Democrats power? And if the answer is they very publicly say absolutely not, all right, they're probably decent. If it's one of the candidates who's already done it and shown that they will join, that's a harder question, right? Unless they say, you know what, I regret my decision. I will never join with Democrats again. Okay, you could give them maybe one time, hopefully, and they won't stab you in the back with the answer. But if they won't answer the question, Mike, then that's your answer, right? It always is. When they won't answer the question, that's your answer. Yeah, I'll do it again. So if any of the candidates will not publicly announce and say, or renounce their decision previously and say, I will never join with Democrats and give them power, then you probably need to look for another candidate. You notice I'm not doing specific names. I'm careful about that, right? Because they get so touchy, right? But the point that it's a valid question in a campaign year. If I give you my vote, one of my most precious things, my vote, are you going to go against Republican principles that I'm assuming you hold and give power to Democrats? And if the answer is not no, that's not the right candidate, Michael, because we're going to continue to watch the legislature be divided. You're going to continue to have a House and a Senate with one of them controlled by Democrats when there's more Republicans. And instead of having the trifecta for the first time since I've been there, where you have the Republicans in control of the House and Senate and the governorship, where we might actually get some decent things done, like election reform and other things that are needed, a fiscal policy, they're never going to happen when you have Democrats control one of the bodies, because it just becomes a blocking force. All they're going to do is the exact opposite. They're going to go bigger government, more taxes, more spending. And then you got Republicans in the Senate that help them go down that path. So there's your question. At the end of the day, that's it. There's your question. Ask the candidate, are you going to join with Democrats in a supermajority, a bipartisan majority, and give them power if I give you my vote and you're elected, and see what they say? That's the question that every candidate needs to be asked. That's the question you need to put them on record with so that we can hold them accountable. Period. Dot. Above everything else. Right.
It's one of the reasons why it's on the Charter of Changes. Is one of the questions, following the rules of the binding caucus and the Open Meetings Act and the conflict of interest rules. Changing the rules. We've got to do that. They've got to pitch out this binding caucus rule and stop caucusing with people who are antithetical to what their party is all about.
I agree with that. But look, the binding caucus rule is even less important than this question of joining Democrats.
Yeah.
The binding caucus rule is irrelevant if the Democrats have power, because they don't care. They'll vote for spending in government every time, and it won't matter. And they're happy to do it as long as they have power. So it's even less important. As much as I don't like it, the binding caucus is less dangerous than Republicans that are going to join with Democrats and give them power.
Yeah.
If I had to go on the scale to choose a lesser of two evils, I will choose a binding caucus with Republicans in control, because it's just really at the end of the day, it's really mostly just the budget, which is year to year. And that's can change year to year.
Right.
But what is damaging to us is a Democrat controlled body that passes laws that aren't going to be just year to year, that are going to affect us into the future. So if I'm looking at that grading scale, the bell curve, the most important question is whether or not Republicans are going to join with Democrats and give them power for lasting and enduring terrible change for the state.
Right.
The binding caucus is important, but it is down the scale because, like I said, it only affects a year. So even then, we have to be careful, right? Because everything has a there's consequences for our choices and our actions. And right now, the most important thing is whether or not Republicans will stick together over everything else.
Right.
We can deal with the nuances of the other stuff later, but it doesn't even matter about a binding caucus if Republicans keep swinging power to the Democrats. It's irrelevant.
Yeah. And clarification, Kevin clarified for us. Underwood's actually running against Eastman. It's Alexi Moore that I was thinking about running against Sumner. So, yeah, no.
I don't even running against Sumner. I think he kind of recruited her as I hear it. So if he does step down or doesn't run, I don't even think it's a run against him per se. I think it's just he was looking for somebody that he would support or that he liked or something like that as I hear it. So.
Well, we'll see. We'll see. Again, the Senate race, I think, is the one. Again, the Senate races are the ones that I think we really need to be watching for. It'd be nice to solidify more places in the House for sure, to solidify that majority. But we've got to get the Senate flipped if we're going to get anything done. And I think that's where the focus should be at this point. All right. Well, Mike, appreciate it, my friend. Thank you for putting up with my
bad
attitude today and this morning. It's just dude, some of this report thing, it blows my mind. This report thing that they will not. I mean, I don't even know. I feel like I want to go on a freaking rampage in a campaign of just asking the lieutenant governors. Maybe we'll do a lieutenant governor watch where, where's the report? And just say every day, this is day number 12 of them not reporting the report, or day number 15 or day number 60. And maybe we'll just connect Dahlstrom's name to that because she's in charge of it. I don't know. Maybe it'll make it. I can't.
I don't know, Mike. You said it. Citizens have standing to see that report. It was taxpayer dollars. So if somebody sued, at least they put it back.
Maybe that's what I need. Maybe I need a good lawyer who's willing to do this pro bono and just for the good of the people to go out there and fight the state on this, because it makes no sense that this thing would be redacted. All right. Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it. Good to talk with you, brother. We'll talk to you soon.
Cheers.
All right. Thanks so much. All right, folks, we are out of time. We got to go. Tomorrow is Thursday. Aaron Smith from Reason Magazine will be joining us. We'll talk with him about education and more. It's going to be good stuff. So stick around for that tomorrow. And then Friday, of course, Firearms Friday. Chris Chang will be joining us, Willie Waffle, and more. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free thicket radio. We'll see you then. Have a good day.
We've shed our terrestrial radio skin, and now we are slimy lizard internet people. It's the Michael Duke Show.